And we're live. So, good morning, good afternoon, buenos dias, buenas tardes to everyone who's joining us. We are here for one of the first Alpha Lives for From Idea to Impact, Latinas Leading the Future of Entrepreneurship. I'm Ashley Rivera Mercado, founder and president of Mujeres in Marketing, and I'm so excited to be moderating this conversation with two amazing Latina entrepreneurs. So I will go ahead and give space for you guys to introduce yourselves.
I'm
So
Lisa, founder of Bisqueya, a food company that celebrates Latin Caribbean cuisine, inspired by my own Dominican heritage, and we are reclaiming sabor.
Love that. And I'm Corey, and I'm one of the co-founders of Ocoa Beauty, and we are creating curly hair care for hermanas everywhere, all inspired also by the Dominican Republic. So Marisa's like my hermana, so we're both doing things inspired by culture.
I love that so much. I'm actually Puerto Rican, so somos vecinas. That's always what I say to my Dominican girlies. So we'll just go ahead into some questions. I think we'll just keep it super natural today and have just some baseline questions to answer, and then we'll take some from the audience, depending on who's listening. So sound good?
That's great.
Yeah.
So each of you started with an idea deeply connected to your culture and your comunidad. So what was the moment you knew you were ready to turn that idea into a business? And what early barriers did you have to push through?
Want to take it away, Marisa?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I always say Bisqueya started in my family kitchen way before it became even a business idea. My parents owned the oldest Dominican restaurant still standing today in Brooklyn. It's called Puerto Viejo. If anybody's out there in Brooklyn, go check it out. Excellent food. But so growing up, food was at the core of every celebration, whether a happy one or a sad one. It's how we connected to our roots. Then one day we lost this restaurant to a fire, and I got involved in the rebuild, and that experience completely changed me. It made me realize that our flavors were highly seeked and needed. And there was a point where I thought, like, if we don't preserve these flavors in a real accessible way, will they still be here for generations that come after us? And that thought stayed with me. And I want the next generation of Dominican and Caribbean kids and anyone searching for a connection to our culture to be able to find these flavors proudly on shelves made with integrity. And that purpose has carried me through through the early barriers, and still today it carries me through. At the time, it was the fear of stepping away from stability. I had a corporate job, and that was a very big decision I had to make. And also, I didn't know anything about the industry. But knowing that I was honoring something bigger than myself, that gave me courage, and also being reminded that if my parents, who were immigrants, came here with nothing but courage and faith, I could take this risk too.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. And I relate so much to Rex's story as well. I mean, we started Ocoa Beauty because we actually grew up with the mentality that our hair was pelo malo. So we didn't embrace our curly hair until later on in mid 20s. So my sister and I, Nicole, started the company because as we were searching together as sisters, trying to like start our transformation, our transitioning journey from straightening our hair and chemical damage our hair to curly hair. We noticed that the products that we were using were either complicated or had ingredients that, like, at the end of the day, all of them had like the same exact ingredients, and they were too heavy for our hair. So we just literally took a struggle that we grew up with and turned it into something that we just felt that we wanted to help other women embrace who they're born to be. And we didn't want other generations to continue to experience that self-esteem issues that we unfortunately grew up with those society issues in our country. So we kind of took it upon ourselves to learn formulations, to kind of connect it back to culture by bringing ingredients that connected us back to the island, to home, but also taking a skincare approach for the scalp because it's all about healthy hair in the end. So it started as that, and we connected it even further when we wanted to actually showcase and highlight our culture and our family name by naming Ocoa, which is actually my mom's hometown in Dominican Republic, is a place you can go and visit. And It's even deeper connected to our roots, where our family's from, but also showcasing the areas of Dominican Republic that people might not know. So that Taino culture, the culture of like the island, the ingredients, plus breaking barriers by taking away that stigma that pelo malo is no longer a thing. That's really what built the movement, and a lot of people resonated with it.
I love that. And then we were talking before we got on that today I picked the wrong day to straighten my hair because I'm with the curlies. But no, I love so much about what you both have shared, and it's really rooted in your identity, right? You spoke a lot, both of you, about wanting to represent, like, whether it was an existing family business or an aspect of the culture that you felt was underserved. So I really feel like kind of that community mind was always at the forefront of what you do. And that's really what's been able to sustain you so long in your industries and as entrepreneurs. So I love that so much, because a lot of what, we talk about at Mujeres in Marketing is like maintaining your identity throughout your career journey. So in kind of tying that in, for many Latina founders, entrepreneurship often begins while juggling full-time jobs, like Maritza said, leaving kind of the corporate world to embrace this next phase, family responsibilities and financial constraints. So how did you manage the tension between sustaining your vision and sustaining yourself? So whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, that's a real one. When you're building something while working full time, which was my case, you're constantly choosing between what you want to do and what you have to do. And there were years that I was working 2 jobs by day and building my business at night. And let's add that I'm the oldest of 3 siblings and the only girl in a Latina household. So, the responsibilities with that comes with that. But, I learned how to balance, not through perfection, but through like rhythm, and understand that there are seasons about building, and then there are the seasons for resting and leaning into your community. I'm fortunate to have a strong community of family and friends, and I've built a strong connection also with my mentors, and that has kept me grounded throughout this journey, which can be very difficult. And also redefining what success means. It's not only about financial for me, it's about being able to build something, as I mentioned earlier, bigger than myself, may build with integrity, that honors my culture, and that one day could sustain me full time. And so, that keeps me going, remembering why I started. That's so important. I always think, when you think about a business, it has to be beyond financials. There has to be a very deep rooted purpose, because that's what gives you the courage to keep going, keep growing. And for me, it's about, the most important is creating representation in a space that there's been a very big lack of, and to make my community proud, and to show that a woman of color had a dream and made it happen, and something meaningful and scalable, occurred. So that's really where I've come to throughout this journey of 8 years now into the business.
Yeah, I was about to ask, how long have you been in the game? Because you spoke a little bit about creating that rhythm. And I think this is kind of a transitional time, right, in the economy, where we are seeing people kind of exit maybe a corporate role or something stable, whether they chose to leave it or they were laid off. So how were you kind of able to establish your rhythm? Like, how long did it kind of take for you to do that?
It took a long time to come to that point. I almost reached the breaking point, I think, to understand that if you're thinking long term and you really have a big vision for your project, you have to think about how you're going to scale in a sustainable way. And that meant not doing everything myself, trusting in other people and building those partnerships that are key to help grow the business. And, that was a turning point where, I thought scalability meant getting more into more doors, getting those big POs, getting those accounts. But then I realized that you need people to grow. Like, you can't do it alone. And then you're in it for the long term. If you're thinking short term, it's a different game. But if you're thinking long term, you have to be able to get into that rhythm with the ebbs and flows that comes with the journey, and be able to navigate that, and strength and courage and learning. Always, for me, it's always been, I've always trying to learn new frameworks of this business, becoming an industry expert that gives you also the tools to build with confidence and understand that you have what it takes, and that means resting, and that means also as yourself as a leader, building yourself as a leader, not only the business.
Beautiful. Thank you. And then just restating the question for Corey. So how did you manage the tension between sustaining your vision and sustaining yourself?
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with what Marexa said, and I think it's also about not letting comparison really dictate what you're doing, because I think that sometimes now in the social media world, when you see, you think you see this overnight success, and you let that pressure actually dictate what you're doing, and you're not letting the time really dictate when and why you should be doing things. I think that's like the biggest part that we have learned. I mean, I think, for us, we both had full-time jobs. I actually, my family, I have two kids, so it was really hard to take that step and say I'm gonna, leave that job and completely full like force go in the business. But I did notice that after I was able to do that, go full time in the business, is when we saw the growth. And then my sister joined a few months after. So, like Maritza said, it's all about a mindset shift that you make and bringing the people in. Because I think that, at least for me, we grew up with the mentality that we had to save all the coins, right? And you need to like keep it within. And it's like, it's hard to sometimes break it out. We want to pretend we're superheroes and that we can do it all. But at the end of the day, a business doesn't fail because of lack of funding. It actually fails when the founders and the main vision behind the business is burned out and overloaded with work. So I think it's just kind of like breaking free from the fact that like, oh, I need to do it all, and like actually trusting that are other people there that are there to support you and your business. I mean, I feel like one question that I saw that actually resonated a lot, where it says, what if you don't have a passion, but you know that your 9 to 5 isn't it? Sometimes you're in the 9 to 5 to learn those lessons that later on are gonna build, either that business or that passion or that project that you want to be involved in. And it's the time. It's like, let's not let comparison or other things dictate like, oh, I need to be doing something right now. It's just take all the learnings, like be a sponge, learn from everybody, your mentors, advisors, your bosses, everybody, because you don't know if that 9 to 5 right now, without even noticing, it's actually building you to do something greater in the future. So, and then if you know that's you don't have a passion, that passion is going to come in, because we didn't know we were going to create a curly hair business. It literally just became out of a group text that Nicole and I were like, oh yeah, let's just like do this journey together to embrace our curly hair, and look where we are now. So it's like sometimes that passion that you're looking for is naturally just going to really come to you.
Yeah, I think you speak a lot about like kind of getting that passion organically. And I think that's so important because, again, like both of you have said, if you don't have the interest, the business can't sustain itself, right? Your passion isn't there. You'll get tired. You'll try to pivot. And then another thing you said, Corey, that really resonated was like work your 9 to 5 to learn. So when I speak to students a lot, I'm like, learn for free, because you're not going to take the hit on making that mistake. If it's your business, you get to learn on someone else's dime. And maybe like the mistakes aren't as like what is it, earth shattering? Because like when you're a small business owner, you feel every hit, right? So I think it is really important to like, I tell students like, and not in like this like really depressing way, but it is like, do your time, learn what you can in those structured environments and take that when you can build your business later. Because so much of like my career has actually lended itself beautifully to my entrepreneurship, but I didn't have to pay for it when I was learning, which is the best part. So both of you have kind of touched on this a little bit, but access to capital remains one of the biggest challenges for Latina entrepreneurs. So how have you approached funding or financing your growth? And what advice would you give to other founders navigating those conversations for the first time? Because I think this was kind of asked because even culturally, talking about money is like still kind of taboo. And I think that's crazy given that Latinos are the top, demographic in the United States starting businesses. So for people kind of going into those conversations for the first time, What advice would you give those? And then like, how has your approach been in getting that funding?
Yeah, I wish I was in a room like this talking about fundraising, or at least being presented with the idea of fundraising, because when I began, I didn't realize that funding was going to be uh, an important part of building this journey. As you mentioned, our culture, we don't really speak about, money much. It's not an open conversation. And the truth is, when you're building something big, you will need funding at some stage. I didn't come from a network of, investors or generational wealth. So I've been self-funded and in the industry, you're called bootstrapped, right? And every bit of savings, earnings, every extra dollar I've earned has gone into the business. And so eventually I started applying for grants and pitch competitions. And what I learned is that storytelling is your biggest currency. People will invest in clarity and conviction. And you don't need to have every answer or know, exactly how you're going to execute this project, but you do need to communicate why your business matters and what makes it different. And it's been challenging because, when you have a lot of clarity, you know exactly what you need to make this happen, and you're constrained by funding. It's difficult, but I'm grateful that I've been bootstrapped this far along, because it's taught me how to grow my business in a sustainable way. And also it's given me the flexibility to learn and to develop myself as a leader. And that's leverage. Now that we're ready to raise capital, that gives me leverage. I have a proven concept. I have a business that works. And you want that in place before you go and ask and bring in external funding into your business. And I become an expert in my industry. So again, that gives you, again, leverage, versus starting off with a lot of funding and not knowing what you're doing and just burning all the cash and finding yourself in this cycle of asking for money. And it tends to not lead to a good place. But my advice for future founders or fellow founders is, don't be afraid to start small, prove your concept first, then build. Which is important to keep your 9-to-5 job. There, to your point, Ashley, like there's a lot of good lessons that will transfer over to your business. So don't underplay that experience. Know your market size and the key players in your industry, and the landscape, because that will educate you into like the size and the magnitude of the industry that you're competing in. And then you think about fundraising. Remember that funding isn't always also financial. Mentorship, partnerships, community support will open doors that sometimes money never would.
Amazing. And especially true now, because more than ever, I hear that a lot of the times when people invest in your business, they're actually investing in the founder more than the business itself. So I know Corey was ready to go. So
No, I was just gonna agree 100%. I mean, I think that for us, don't be afraid to also bet on yourself, right? Like we are also bootstrapping the business. Sometimes like we're so afraid of like, oh, we're getting a line of credit or we're gonna get a loan or all of that. I mean, we easily go and sign for a car and we buy a brand new car that is $50,000. But why can you get a loan, and betting on yourself for your business? Like I remember the day like when we did our rebrand, like we got a loan for like about $50,000, and I was nervously like signing this loan because I had to put my house as a collateral. And then I was like, wow, like I'm doing this. And then I remember receiving the letter about a few months ago, like where we paid it off, and we're like, wow, we paid it off. And it's like, you're okay. You can go to the dealership and get a car, a brand new car, and you don't even think about it or how you're going to pay this car. But we're so afraid of like, let me sign up for this loan that I'm actually is going to give me the opportunity to grow my business and I can prove myself that I can bet on myself. And, that right there is like a huge mindset shift. You have to think about it. Like sometimes we just do things and we kind of block ourselves thinking that there's no other options, but there are options. And like Marixa said, you have to prove your concept first. I think there's a lot of like this kind of imaginary idea where like, oh, you need to go and get a VC to fund you and like get all these like extra money and then you're gonna grow this business to $100 million. Like, well, yeah, that's a possibility, but isn't it better that you learn every single aspect of your business and you are very responsible on how you're spending your budget with the money that you're getting from people who are giving you the opportunities through line of credits or loans or grants or all of these things. So like once you prove that, like it's going to be much easier to find funding that way. And also thinking about like all your sweat equity and like how much value are you giving to that. So when you're ready to grow your business even further, like your value and your valuation of your company is worth even more than when you're just starting from zero and you're getting people to borrow, to give you money. So I would say also start small. We started with one product and now we have a collection. So like sometimes you're like, oh, I want to do this business, but I need like 20 things. Like you could start with one thing and make that one thing like the best selling product that you can have. And it's going to probably cost you less. So I just think that it's all about creating a plan, and then when you're ready, then go out and look for that other extra funding that is going to show and prove that you're going to 3x or 2x your business.
Yeah, I think that speaks a lot to like the overnight success stories we see a lot, because people are like, oh, well, if I'm raising money, I have to raise like $100,000. I can't raise like 10,000 from my local community just to help me get like my first product out, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's also in the fundamentals of understanding like asking for money doesn't need to be like a fancy pitch competition for 6 figures, right? It could be from like your friends, your family, your professional network, smaller investors. Like it really just kind of depends on what you're trying to do. So I actually wanted to start the last question, and then we'll take some from like the Instagram comments. But for Corey, because you did talk about like starting with one product and then scaling from that. So growth requires structure, from supply chains to partnerships to marketing. So what systems or practices helped you move from a passion project to a scalable business?
Yeah, I mean, everything is a circle and everything affects your output and your goals. So the same way that you need your supply chain to work, you also need your financials and your projections and your goals to be aligned. So then the marketing team can be like, okay, well, we can take this and actually, meet the goal. So I feel like at the end of the day, everything kind of needs to be aligned, and it takes time to build a team. And that's one thing that, finding the right people who connects and is aligned with your visions and values is one of the hardest thing. I think when you're scaling, and it's similar to what Maritza said, it's like that's when you start not just investing funds to inventory in your business, but you're also investing in your team and those people who are going to help you meet those goals. So I don't say that one thing is more like a priority than others. I feel like everything has to like dance the same song, right? Like the same way that the supply chain and inventory projections and forecasts have to be aligned with your whatever financial goals you have, plus how you're going to market that. So like it's just overall, going one step at a time. And obviously you don't have to get like 20 people at once, but like start with people who can help you first with projects, right? Like you can get a contractor who can help you create something. And then from there, you start aligning and seeing, okay, this is an actual team that I need to like bring into my company. And for us, it's been that. Like, I think starting a business, it's not that it's easy, it's hard, but I think scaling a business is even harder. I think that's when you're like exposed to a lot of that mindset shift where like, where are you investing next? How are you going to meet these goals? And get very, very detailed on like looking at things from a daily perspective, from weekly to monthly to quarterly, and make sure that like how are you in meeting those goals that you're assessing, at the beginning of the year. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's the way that we see it.
I definitely think it did. I think you spoke really beautifully about like different ways that you can approach building a team, because I do think we're very absolutist, right? We always think like, especially as women or even just as Latinos, like we have to have everything fully figured out, but it is really like start and scale from that method.
Yeah.
So Maritza, same thing. So what systems or practices helped you move from a passion project to a scalable business with Biscaya?
Yeah, well, I wanted to touch on what Corey said about team building. I think also as you're bringing on, whether it's a contractor or just bringing an intern, you also start learning about other people's strengths and your own strengths and weaknesses. Like, oh wow, like this person can actually do that better than I can. And it's a realization of knowing that that's the reality of things. You have to assess your own strengths and fill in those gaps of weaknesses with people that can elevate your brand and help you grow faster. So I think, and as Caribbean people, structure is not really our thing. Like family structure, yes, but not when it comes to like, long-term working. Like you'll do things the same, but it's we're Caribbean. We're free. We like
We're
to move.
passionate people.
We're passionate people. And that can feel like, building a system can feel like so
restricting
and restricting.
Yeah.
And no, it's actually necessary to build something long-term, and it doesn't remove the soul of the project. It doesn't have to. So that was for me the lesson. I think also being in corporate helped me bring that over to my business, is understanding that you need repetition in systems. You need that, systems to be standardized, as simple with your recipes, like that has to be consistent. And you have to build these solid and strong partnerships with, in my case, with co-packers, with our supply chain. And those repeatable processes is what has helped us scale and get into more doors. So I would say that, and building the business, it is, for us has always been key to build with integrity, and these systems help you also with that.
Well, it's also to your point, like I think what you're describing is discipline, right? Like having the discipline, because when you discipline yourself as a business owner, like you're also saving money. You're creating like sustainable, repeatable processes that build trust in your brand and deliver a consistent product. So I think it really just goes back to that, which is funny because you hear a lot of people talk about discipline in a business, and that's really reflected in their systems, their culture, how they're delivering their product. So I think that's super, super useful information. So we do need to plan, unfortunately. But let's move on. I think we have time for like one more question. So the next one is, how do I get out of the mentality that I need to learn everything myself? So it's hard to undo to be an independent and self-sufficient like Latina with that mindset. So I think it's talking more about hyper independence and being the one with all the answers. I think you both kind of touched on that, but what are some things that kind of helped you get out of that beyond just, like potentially meeting someone that could do it better?
Wow. I mean, I would start by saying that whatever you're building, you have to see it that is bigger than yourself. And I think once you have this, like, because you have to see it as a baby, right? Like you have this baby, you're nurturing this baby, but this baby is going to learn how to crawl and then walk and then run. Right. So, when we started Ocoa, I feel like you could become that obstacle that doesn't allow your business to continue to grow, because you're thinking that doing it all yourself makes it more close to like that time frame where you're still nourishing your baby, right? So once your baby starts to walk, that baby's going to start like going to the kitchen, to the living room, to all these places, right? And you can't stop that, right? So that's the way that you have to see how your business flow. And I'm sorry, I'm a mom, so like that's the only way that I can give you examples. But it's just like you need to let it walk and know that is a human that has his own, brain, and it's going to start becoming bigger than yourself, right? So if your goal in your mission at the end of the day, for us, for example, is helping women embrace who they're born to be, I, Corey Verona, cannot help every single woman myself. I need to let a team allow me to help everybody. So that's when you start writing down like what your actual ultimate goal is, and you understand it, and you like sit with it and you think about it, like you're going to start seeing that by yourself is impossible to reach it. So and that is hard. I see it, and I'm still in a way working through it. There's things where I feel like I have to be the answer, or I right away have to make the choice. The one thing that has helped me is that this business is not by myself, right? Like I have a sister, and we learned with us together, having a co-founder helped us shape the business in a way that it allowed us to have more people involved, right? So like she has some ownerships, and then I had other areas that I was like responsible for, but we always collaborated, and that helps us bring more people to help us collaborate. And now we have people running with things that they understand the vision and mission so close that sometimes I'm like, wow, like that idea is something that you came up with, something I wouldn't have been able to come up with that, right? So once you let other people understand this so well, and that's when you realize you have a brand. That's when you realize that your business is bigger than yourself.
Amazing. Thank you. Maritza?
I mean, that was a great analogy, Corey. The one you used about.
I was gonna say her with her analogies. I'm learning so much, taking notes.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add. Well, something did come up yesterday at a Whole Foods session that we're onboarding with Whole Foods, and we're having these onboarding preparedness sessions and bringing professionals in. And something that came up was about about wanting to control and do everything yourself. And sometimes you have to dig a little deeper and understand where that's stemming from. And I mean, you can go as far as like studying like a psychological as a triangle by, I had to look it up because it was so interesting. It was so fascinating, by Stephen Cartman's. And it's like a lot of us fall into this hero mindset where we want to control it because we want to have the answers and want to be there for everyone and be that hero. And when you become a founder, you're gonna have to navigate through these like different types of mindsets, and it's going to be work to shift your way out of certain mindsets to be able to evolve and grow with the brand. And you are going to change throughout the journey of being a founder, and that's just going to be a normal, if you're thinking long term and big, like Corey said, like that's going to be part of the work, not only building a brand but also building yourself. But yeah, I have nothing. Corey, I think, said everything.
And one book that I would like to recommend to her, I think there's one by Marie Bordes. I think she's a Dominican psychology. I think it's breaking cycles. And that one is about she's Dominican and how she broke the cycles, intergenerational cycles, and she broke the cycle of healing from in a way that we're growing up with, or like our culture, or the way that like our family dynamics might be. Sometimes we need to like heal from that as well, and that could help that that person who wrote that comment about changing that mindset. Sometimes it's just recognizing what you have, how your family is, and trying to find a way to heal, so it allows you to be able to see things differently in a business setting, in the work setting, in every setting. But I feel like once you identified it, which is what she did, she had already identified that she wants to, she had that issue. It's just identify it first and try to heal it, and that's going to help you like live life in a way that is so much easier.
Right. I think that says a lot about the hyper independence we're taught, and then ways that we can combat that, right? You guys have both spoken a lot about delegating, building teams, and that's also cultural, right? As much as the hyper independence is for women, it's also creating that community, right? And that's kind of why we're here with Alpha, and we join these organizations for all of that support. So I love all of this, but I think we're wrapping up here. So, before we close out, I just want to thank you, Maritza and Corey, for today's conversation. I think it was super helpful, super great. I love all the work you're doing. But before we close out, where can listeners and attendees find your business? So feel free to share kind of your socials, your websites, wherever they can find you. I think, Maritza, you said Whole Foods, so that's amazing.
Yes, so we're launching next year into Whole Foods, so please look out for us. So, yes, it's very exciting. Something long-term work. I've been working on this for so long. So big move, Dominican brand and Whole Foods.
We love to see it.
Yeah. Follow us on Instagram. I share a lot about my story and our journey and lessons learned on our Instagram page, Pisqueya, at Pisqueya, Pistueya. And we're on TikTok too. Our website, subscribe to our newsletter. We're also very active with our newsletters and share even discounts periodically. So follow us there. And yeah, and we have a store located on our website. You know, if you're in New York, you can grab a bottle of our passion fruit hot sauce at Target stores all over New York.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, fine hot sauce, delicious. And yeah, just join our community, you know, support us. It's important. You know, I always say, like, we're doing all these, you know, all this work, and for us, like, a big goal in the next few years is getting into more retail doors. And that requires community support. That requires, you know, we're building the systems and the relationships to get into those doors, but we need our community to come and also support and share with their communities as well, that there's a woman building something so big for our people. So yeah, excited to share more. So follow us.
So proud
Awesome.
of you, Maritza. For us, you can find us on all socials at Okoa Beauty, on our website, okoabeauty.com. And also you can shop our products at Ulta Beauty, ultabeauty.com, and also in over 400 doors. And we also have a store locator, which you can put your zip code and you can find us there. And also, if you're on Amazon, you can find us on amazon.com. So there's ways to support us. I did want to mention we are the first Dominican brand at Ulta Beauty. So if you ever happen to go by an Ulta Beauty, you can get Aqua Beauty there. We're just very proud we were able to do that this year, and the support that we have received from the community has been incredible. So thank you so much. But if you are just finding about Aqua Beauty today, welcome to go anywhere. You know, any of those platforms to support us will be great.
Beautiful. Thank you, ladies. And you're going to have repeat customer through me. So I love that. But have a good day. And thanks for everyone for tuning in.
Thank you.
Bye.